Well, good morning and welcome to Elevenses. I hope I'm not going to have microphone problems again this morning. The mic has been flicking in and out according to the setup here. It is actually running, but I don't know if it's very loud. It seems to be very faint. I don't know what the problem is there. Hopefully you can hear me. If you can't, do let me know before I go too much further with the show. I know there are a couple of people watching, so if you can just give me a heads up on whether it's the volume's okay or not, that would be very useful. Right, okay, anyway, on with the show. Sue says, here's fine. Okay, thanks, Sue. Thank you very much indeed. Welcome. And Bo says, loud and clear as well. Good, excellent. That's good to know. Right, well, we have a fairly busy show today. We have a whole series of stories which appear to be the wrong ones that have gone up in the ticker. I don't know why that is. I just changed them. Maybe I forgot to hit the save button. So what have we got for you today? Well, sadly, Ryder has died in... no, that's still the wrong stuff. That's the wrong show. Oh, God, teeth. I set this all up again this morning and it's still showing the wrong information. Just a moment while I find the correct show. Right. No, that's still not showing as the correct show. Right, well, I can tell you what's in it while I sort it all out. A Cornish Bloodbiker sadly died in a crash on the Scottish North Coast 500 route. And that's rather bad news. We'll come back to that one because it was part of the group. He was part of the group that I was presenting to just the other day. So right, just sorry, just bear with me for a moment. I had all this set up again and it's gone to the wrong show. Right, okay, that's the correct show. Let's save that, close that down and try opening it again. Right, okay, we've got the right data up now. So, okay, it was, in fact, yes, as I say, Ryder has died in a bike-on-bike crash on the NC500. Sadly, that was the group I was presenting to the other day. The new Ace Café franchise is opening in Florida. There we go, we got the right one at last. Indonesian minister has pledged 800,000 electric motorcycles, cash for those, and 200,000 electric conversions from ICE bikes. The organisers of the Indian MotoGP insist it will be going ahead. If you want to watch live drone footage from a Grand Prix, Red Bull say they have the solution. I'm not so sure that's a great idea, mind. I'm not convinced that paying £100 to get a pre-distressed helmet is a good idea either, but no doubt some people will want to do that. We'll have a look at that helmet from Ruroc. CF Moto, they have teased a new bike. It's a 500cc four-cylinder sports bike, said to look sort of a retro's 80-90 look. We'll have a quick look at that and tell you what we know about that. And finally, I'll go back to the NC500 route up in Scotland and ask if the creation of it has actually backfired, as it's been used in ways that probably wasn't intended originally. So that's all today's show, so let's try and crack on with that. Hopefully I've finally got the right bits of information in front of me. So, right, okay. It's all over the place. I don't know what's happened here at all. It's completely the wrong information, and I had this all sorted out. All right, I'll have to read it off the other screen, which is going to be a little bit confusing because I'll be looking in the wrong place, but I'll just read it off the other screen. Right, anyway, first thing I just wanted to say was just for noon on Friday, I found a Doc Bike Media video. Doc Bike is the charity which is aimed at putting paramedics onto motorcycles and helping with fast response to accidents and other emergencies. Now, they have put up some media, and one of the things they were talking about was how motorcyclists can avoid the threat from a Smithy collision. Now, as you can imagine, that's being a topic of mine, favourite. I was interested to see what they had to say about making riders aware of the potential for the crash and how they could take some straightforward steps to stay out of trouble. That's all well and good. Now, as you know, if you're a regular here, that's straight out of the Science of Being Seen playbook. I presented the Science of Being Seen presentation for Campfire and Rescue. I created it back in 2012 as the crash prevention module for Biker Down for their pilot courses. Now, Biker Down, having been successfully rolled out by Kent Fire and Rescue for a year, with me fully involved in that. Every Biker Down we did, Biker Down went national. Now, obviously, I couldn't deliver the presentation for every fire service, so many fire services did pick up a version of my presentation. Science of Being Seen has now been dropped, sadly, by the fire services. They're using something called the Thinking Biker. Science of Being Seen lives on in that. Now, as I say, Doc Bike are doing some worthy things, and I certainly don't have any argument with what they're doing. However, what I kind of take slight exception to is the fact that they are using oh Lord, let's take that off. Everything is going wrong this morning, even though I had bloody hours to set it all up and I had it all working as usual before the show. So there we go. That's basically what they're advertising. There's their module 3. They've changed the name. They've changed the order slightly. They're talking about visibility, making yourself seen, and they show the complete opposite of what I talk about when we discuss visibility on Science of Being Seen. I talk about the way these colour schemes don't work, rather than suggesting that they do. So I talk about the sort of invisibility and how to protect yourself from others who don't see you. That's all covered in Science of Being Seen, as are the preventive riding strategies, which concludes the Science of Being Seen project. So slightly different order, but basically the same content. So I logged in to comment on the video. Now, interestingly, within seconds of posting, it had disappeared. So I guess it's a bot took it down, because I included a link to the Science of Being Seen website, which is, just in case you'd forgotten, www.scienceofbeingseen, no spaces in those words, .org. So that slightly frustrating. I've contacted Doc Bike several times about their use of Science of Being Seen, really in terms of collaboration rather than to any sort of conflict. But despite having had several chats with their researcher, Shel Silver, I've not actually managed to conclude anything. So a little slightly disappointing, but not everybody is quite so difficult to reach as Doc Bike. I've been a bit tied up with funerals and so on and so forth, presentations down in the West Country over the last month or so. So this message from Tony Hayward did actually slip by me, and I've only just got round to responding to it, actually. Tony does continue to deliver the Science of Being Seen presentation as part of Biker Down in Devon, which is good to know. So he pinged me. He said, yesterday's Biker Down group, have a good look. Something may make you smile. So again, let's try and get that photo up for you. There's the Biker Down group, Tony on the end, on the far right of the screen. So I zoomed in for a closer look, and I'm going to do the same for you. And it's not staged, he says. And if you look there closely, you can see the the giveaway eye on the book being held there in the centre of the screen. That's my Science of Being Seen book. And Tony says it wasn't staged. I always hand the book out when I start Science of Being Seen, and he would not let it go. He finally gave it back as he left. It was only when I posted the photo on Facebook I noticed it. So yes, it is good to know that some fire and rescue services are still using Science of Being Seen, even though my semi-official link with Cape Fire and Rescue and thus the fire services generally was severed back in 2020. And of course, anybody who wants to know about Science of Being Seen, I am always ready to offer support, advice, updates, anything else anybody wants to know if they want to use the presentation. All I ask is I get credit as the original author, and that's something that the authors of Thinking Biker that replaced Science of Being Seen have failed to do. So if you want to order a download link to the book, head to my Science of Being Seen website, or better still, easier really, go to my coffee shop and get it from over there. And I'll try and put the link up to that later. It's obviously on the wrong computer at the moment because I'm having to read the script off the other screen. Right, okay, so £7, but obviously all the funds from that go straight into my research, so it's genuinely helpful. Anyway, so on with the weather for bikers. And as you may well have predicted already, it's going to be a bit of a mixed bag. Low pressure is dominating our weather, and what that means is the rest of the bank holiday looks unsettled, with the mix of sunny spells and heavy downpours. Temperatures in the mid to high teens. Today, the outbreaks of rain, which are moving north, will clear the south. We actually got away with a bright start here after some overnight rain, but during the afternoon expect showers to develop, possibly with a risk of thunder and heavy downpours. The Met Office have actually issued a weather warning for most of the south of England, predicting poor driving conditions. North Scotland will stay mostly dry with sunny spells. Nothing much changes on Monday, as it looks set to start reasonably sunny, but cloud will again build. Showers will develop just about anywhere, though this time the heaviest will likely be in the north of Scotland, where the thunderstorms are likely. Tuesday should start dry, some sun to the east, but cloud and strengthening winds. This time will bring outbreaks of rain from the west over much of the country by the afternoon, although it will be showery rather than a distinct band of rain. Wednesday looks like a cloudy start, showers just about anywhere, but more frequently over northern and eastern England. And so to the news from around the world. Right, okay, first story. Motorcyclist has been killed and another seriously injured on what's being described as a horror crash on the so-called North Coast 500 route, which is around the mainland in the north of Scotland. Jeremy Weeks, 61, from Mitchell near Newquay, died after the collision between his BMW 1250 GS and a Honda VFR. The Honda rider, a 60-year-old man, was taken to Aberdeen Royal Infirmary for treatment to serious injuries. He's said to be stable. Now, the emergency crews were called to the scene. It was on the A837, which is near the Scottish beauty spot of Lochasint, which is on the west coast part of the route, around 25 miles north of Ullapool. Now, beyond that, reports are actually a bit confused. The Cornish paper says that the collision occurred late on Wednesday night, May 22nd, but a local Scottish report says that the collision occurred during the day at 11:05 a.m. So quite when it was, I suspect it was more likely the daytime. What we do know, however, is that Mr. Weeks was an IAM National Observer with CAM. That was the Cornish group that I delivered my presentation to just 2 weeks ago, and according to a statement issued on behalf of the Cornwall Bloodbikes charity, he'd also recently retired and joined them, becoming active in December. So road policing officers from Scotland are, not surprisingly, appealing for information. They have asked for any dashcam footage that might have been taken of the bikes involved. So my sympathies there to everyone involved. I will come back to this at the end of the show, and I'll discuss how the NC500 is being treated as a brand and how the promotion and the subsequent popularity of the route may be causing safety issues for drivers and riders using that road or the roads that make up the route. So stay tuned to the end of the show for that in-depth look. Now, you've probably heard of the Ace Café on London's North Circular Road. Established in 1938. It's not a million miles away from me. And in the 60s, of course, it became a gathering place for the ton-up kids who raced up and down the North Circular Road, hence the term Cafe Racers. That was, of course, when they weren't sinking cream sodas and listening to rock and roll on the jukebox there. Now, I've been aware of attempts to create a franchise of the Ace Café for a while, but it seems like the Ace's Orlando outlet closed its doors last year after 6 years in operation, but a new venue is set to open in a place called Sanford, which is in central Florida. It's on and it's official, said the new Ace Café Sanford Facebook page. Now, co-owners of the new venue, Sean Kelly, and I don't think that's the Irish cyclist, and Steve Glum made the announcement along with director and owner of the Ace Café in London after the deal was actually done last week. It was unexpected, Glum said. We weren't really ready to make the announcement just yet. It kind of leaked online through our socials and our Instagram blew up. It's the most famous motor diner on the planet, Glum said. Anybody who is kind of in the know of motorbikes in London knows the Ace. It's not a rehash of the Ace Café Orlando, he said. The same honouring of the legacy of the Ace Café in London, but no official, but all new. Now, he says there's a lot of work still to do before the Ace can open its doors in Florida again. There are plans and permits, but no official opening date. Now, apparently it was the same Steve Glum who brought the cafe to Orlando, but I just hope he doesn't live up to his name if he works behind the counter. And I do hope the food's better than the previous usage for the building where it's going to be installed, because that was a farm and garden feed store. Now, I've said many times over the past 4 years, I can't believe I started delivering 11s during lockdown, the electric motorcycles seem to be taken a lot more seriously in some other countries, some surprising nations, than we do here in the UK. Now, at the 9th Annual Global Conference on Energy Efficiency, and that was run by the International Energy Agency in Nairobi in Kenya, the Secretary General of the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources of Rhodesia stated that the Indonesian government is going to be ploughing plenty of cash into electric motorcycles, no less than $455 million US, and this will provide subsidies for the purchases of electric vehicles. And Mr. Dadan Kustiana, the minister, he highlighted something that many of us are aware of, that there is a big price gap between electric vehicles and equivalent petrol-engined vehicles, and so to lower the price disparity, the government is providing tax incentives and subsidies, not just for electric hybrid cars, but also for electric motorcycles. And he said basically that these subsidies will cover the purchase of 800,000 new electric motorcycles. There are about 1.2, 1.4 million electric motorcycles in the UK. Give you motorcycles, sorry, of all types here in the UK, to give you some idea of the scale of this contribution. And interestingly, there will be cash for converting 200,000 conventional ICE engine motorcycles to electric operation. So that was a statement from the ministry on Thursday. And Indonesia's aim is to have 2 million electric cars and 13 million electric two-wheelers on the roads by 2030, together with a charging network that can support them. So contrast that with the steadily watered down aims of the current UK government. Right, okay, so just a quick aside, don't forget, before the next item, can I just ask you please to do the usual thing, click the buttons, support the channel subscribe, like. Whether you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, it all helps. Takes a moment of your time, gets other people discovering my content. And don't forget to tell people about Elevenses too. If you share the link that you're using to join the show to your riding buddies, I'm sure they'll find something interesting too. Okay, so on with the news. The TT is just about to kick off, as you probably know, and you may remember a story on here from someone prosecuted for flying a drone into the no-fly zone on the Isle of Man circuit not too long ago. I can't remember if it was the TT last year or the Manx. Anyway, the reason's pretty obvious. The potential for a sort of a collision between a drone and a high-speed motorcycle is pretty scary. So I have to say that I was rather surprised to discover that Red Bull Technologies and the company with the utterly rubbish name of Dutch Drone Gods have created a 217 mile per hour drone that's capable of keeping up with racing bikes. And if you watch the teaser video on this one, you can see it out accelerating a Red Bull Formula One car with David Coulthard at the wheel. Now it seems they've already tested the drone with KTM's Moto 3 bikes in Jerez in Spain, as riders were preparing there for the Red Bull MotoGP Rookies Cup. They've also tried it out whilst tracking one of KTM's MotoGP bikes too. Now some commentators are saying that drone coverage is the next big thing, which will be a huge leap forward in TV coverage for races. Maybe so for following one bike on a test lap. As I say, there is a 12-minute long promotional video which you can go and watch. I'll put the link up to that later. But frankly, the potential impact of a drone being missteered or malfunctioning over the track and dropping into the path of a bike doesn't really bear thinking about. I really think there are some camera angles that we can live without. What do you think if you watch these races? Now, one other race that we may or may not see any kind of coverage from is the Indian MotoGP race at the Budd International Circuit, which is supposedly going to take place between the 20th and the 22nd of September later this year. Now, the rumours that are surfacing is that the event could be cancelled because it seems that the local presenter of the race, one company called Fair Street Sports, they've yet to deliver their payment to Dorna, the rights holder for MotoGP. The deadline passed on May the 20th. Now, Fair Street Sports say that the event is very much on, and they blame the delay in making the payment down to an impending election, and they say there is a freeze on the spending of public money around election periods. Now, it turns out the actual cash to pay for the event comes from the public purse via the government of Uttar Pradesh, which is the region in India where the circuit's located. Now, the organisers say the money will be available to pay the outstanding amount once the restriction has been lifted, which will be on June the 4th, and that all contractual obligations will be met during that month. Now, it rather begs the question that since they presumably knew about the election and the freeze on spending, why didn't they ensure the cash was available to pay Dorna before that lockdown of the money came into action? If the event does hit the buffers, then the rumour mill is also suggesting it could be replaced on the calendar by the recently postponed Kazakhstan Grand Prix. We'll just have to wait and see, I guess, on that one. I meant to say morning to Kevin as well. So good morning to Kevin. Says he viewed the start at 1.75 speed, so he didn't miss any content. No, you just missed me messing around trying to find out what had happened to the script that I so carefully set up just a few minutes before the show went live. Anyway, the latest thing for the rider who has everything appears to be a distressed helmet. Now this is the Ruroc. It's based on their new EOX shell, which comes with ECE 22.06 certification, so it's the latest standard for motorcycle helmets. And it comes from a range of helmets which are Star Wars themed. Now this one apparently is the Rebel Pilot, featuring the Rebel Alliance's insignia, and it's on what's described as a combat-worn white, red and orange shell. And if I zoom in a little bit, you can see the sort of the pre-distressed elements here. Now, the cost of this will actually set you back an extra £100 over the basic plain white helmet. Now, Disney bought the franchise from George Lucas for a reported £4 billion in 2012. So I guess they have to recoup their cash somehow. The marketing manager at Ruroc, he says that to be able to bring a new Star Wars collection to our all-new EOC so soon after the helmet's launch is a big deal for us. He continues, it's collections like Star Wars that makes us unique and that our community of riders want. Now, frankly, the idea that anybody would want to pay a premium of £100 for a already tatty-looking helmet is beyond me, because you get quite the same effect by spending a few minutes scraping your brand new lid down the road a few times, and at the same time you'd save enough dosh for a few tanks of fuel. Anyway, Ruroc, I hope their helmets work better than their website, because while I was trying to put this story together, their website kept freezing on me and locking up the browser. Now I finally figured out after much messing around that the problem was it was trying to offer me a 10% discount if I signed up to their newsletter. The problem was that they were doing that via a pop-up, which wasn't popping up because I use a pop-up blocker. Now, something that also popped up on my newsfeed is this particular photo here. Now, this is from CF Moto. It's their 500 SR Voom. Yes, you got that right. It is called a Voom, V-O-O-M, which has to be almost as bad as the drone god's name. Anyway, it's supposed to offer riders a new dimension of fun, and we're told that the quote, minimalistic lines and modern surfaces transition seamlessly towards the beating heart of the motorcycle. The inline four-cylinder engine of the 500 SR Voom is an expression of tradition and sportiness. Furthermore, it's a modern result of CF Moto's technological and innovational expertise developed over the last 35 years. So that's what it is. It's just been announced. It's been teased via a YouTube video, and I will again give you that video link at the end of the show. It looks like it's going to be a 2025 model, so I'm guessing that we'll see the bike for real at the autumn round of bike shows. Now, that's about all I can tell you, but for promises that the bike will be a neo-retro, what a meaningless word that is, neo-retro offering, said to be reminiscent of bikes from the 1980s. Now, one helpful YouTuber has taken CF Moto's video, done a bit of manipulation on it, and you can make out from his video rather more than you can see in the sort of dark video that CF Moto provided us with. And what you do see is that the bike appears to get a frame similar to some of the old Triumph triples, the ones, if you recall, that had a twin sort of metal spar up the side of the engine. The sports fairing obviously gets those twin round LED lights, which are an interesting start-up pattern. Several have said it's sort of vaguely reminiscent of an early Fireblade. The bike gets bar end mirrors, upswept exhausts, which are tucked inside the pillion pegs. They're not actually under seat, but they kind of look like some of those aftermarket pipes which were popular in the 90s. Although whether any passenger will be mad enough to get onto the tiny and high perch, I have no idea. Twin tail lights at the rear, also vaguely sort of 80s, 90s look, and the bike gets an across the frame steering damper on the front on the clip-on bars. So as I say, you'll get a video of that later. Right, okay, and finally to the in-depth piece, but before I say anything about that, Kevin says, shall we also do a semi-distressed look? He says, I like the Star Wars theme, and he needs a Tron. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. That's really very, very sad indeed. All right, anyway, okay, on to the in-depth piece today. Right, so I'm going to come back to that top story and look at the NC500, the North Coast route in Scotland. I'm going to ask if the creation of this has backfired. Now the NC500, it's a round trip. It's just over 500 miles long. It covers, quote, stunning coastal sceneries, white sandy beaches, rugged mountains, remote fishing villages, hidden gems, and a wealth of unforgettable experiences. It's said to be one of the world's most beautiful road trips. So what's it all about? Well, I've not done the full loop, although I have actually done many of the roads involved there. But that's the route that you can see there. And I did actually manage to do my own sort of 500-mile ride around Scotland in one day, midsummer, many years ago. Started off cold, wet and miserable, and actually finished in blazing sunshine as I came back down the west coast. So that's where it is. But the difference was that sort of 20 plus years ago, those roads were deserted across most of the north of Scotland. Unfortunately, that's no longer the case because the NC500 has become a well publicised and heavily marketed product since it was originally proposed in 2014. It was actually launched in 2015 in March by the Tourism Project Board of the North Highland Initiative, an organisation set up, believe it or not, by King Charles when he was actually Prince of Wales. Now the aim was to bring income to this remote part of the British Isles. Later that same year, the route was named number 5 in the top 5 coastal routes of the world by a travel magazine. And not too surprisingly, the NHI are very quick to see the commercial opportunities. And they set up a company, North Coast 500 Limited, in January 2017 with the aim of being, quote, a self-funding, self-sustaining company that could continue to promote the North Highlands. Now, Scotland's biggest landowner, private landowner, who you may know is a Danish fashion tycoon by the name of Anders Hock Poulsen, he took control of the NC500 concept and brand in 2019. And he promotes the North Highlands tourist route as a global phenomenon through the northwestcoast500.com website. It's set up to sell everything from luxury accommodation through archaeological trips to golfing, all around the loop. Now, whilst you pay to be a website member on this website to gain access to these organised activities, Northwest 500 of course also charges the providers of these facilities in order to, quote, enjoy a range of benefits, and that's from just £110 a year. So clearly it's a money-making exercise. Now the route has gained, according to the another website called nc-500.com, this route has gained huge popularity, and for very good reasons. The NC500 is a perfect destination for motorcyclists, offering a thrilling ride along some of Scotland's most challenging and rewarding roads. And of course, all you need to do is head to YouTube, and you'll find plenty of people who have filmed their journey and posted it up around this iconic route. So what's the problem with this? Well, basically the increase in traffic, and it's led to problems on what are often surprisingly narrow, hilly and twisty roads that make up many of the sections of this Northwest 200. You know, if you come from the south of England, for example, where there's most roads are relatively flat, fairly twisty if you get off onto the back roads, but very often 2-lane. You'd be really surprised at how you can go down a single track A road on these kind of roads. So what's gone wrong? Well, it seems that the volume of traffic, for starters, has caused damaged roads. A second drawback is that the congestion has actually caused locals significant problems getting from A to B too. It's said that in some places the driving times between places gone up by 3 times during the peak season. So I'm sure it'll be no surprise to you that locals have also been reporting increased incidents of poor driving, riding and speeding too. So there have also been incidents involving cyclists, and pedestrians. Other issues include drivers not using the passing places that are marked out to let others overtake. Others have been driving excessively slowly, blocking people in. That's probably not the bikers. And there have been complaints about big groups all travelling together. That probably will be mostly bikers then. During 2016, the first full year of operation of this loop, when the traffic was actually only up 10%. I haven't been able to find any later data, whether it's gone up even more, but my guess is it probably had. But with that extra 10% of traffic, most of which you can guess would probably be people not familiar with the area coming in to experience the road, the number of deaths and serious injuries on the route went up 45% compared with the year before the people started promoting this route. And perhaps not surprisingly, it's also been used by plenty of riders and drivers as a challenge to try to complete in a single day. And here's an example, which I will just show you. Here we go. I'll get that up on screen for you. Let me get a full screen there. There you can see the whole thing. So that's the North Coast 500. And as you can see, somebody's plotted this on Google Maps, I think that is, and you can see that you can do it in a day. They reckon 13 hours and 47 minutes to do the full 513 miles or 826 kilometers. Now, motorcyclesscotland.com, which publishes this particular map, they are the Moffat and District Motor Club, so cars and bikes presumably. This year appears to be no different in terms of safety, and Police Scotland have not been slow to react out there. A press release from the Highlands and Islands Roads Policing Unit, which came out on May the 16th, says we deploy marked and unmarked car patrols and marked motorcycle patrols alongside our colleagues in the safety camera unit across a variety of locations, and they actually set up a 3-day operation just 2 weekends ago, and they caught one driver at 117 miles per hour. They stopped a total of 103 road users during the operation. 24 ended up getting done for speeding. One was charged with careless driving. Another was reported for driving an unregistered vehicle without an insurance or driving license. 2 were committing vehicle documentation offences. 4 had bald tyres. 1 was caught using a mobile phone at the wheel. 24 warnings were issued to those drivers too. So that brings me back to the sad story of that collision at the top of the show. Now that, as I say, it involved a rider from Cornwall, a Bloodbiker, and another rider. Now, as I explained, the investigation is ongoing, but not surprisingly, there are plenty of people now beginning to ask whether promoting this route was such a great idea after all. I mean, it was originally intended that you took sort of 7 days to actually drive around visiting the scenery rather than just zapping around the roads. The scenery really is stunning up there. Well, you can see it, of course. The weather's not always great, but if you are planning a lap this summer, my advice is don't be in a rush on these roads. If you're not used to riding on these Scottish roads, they really are the sort where you need to prepare for the unexpected. And something you'll also discover is that some of the locals themselves drive these roads at some fairly scary speeds. My friend who lives up there out on the Arden and Morecambe Peninsula, and she is terrifying to drive with, frankly. These roads are littered with unexpected stretches of single track where suddenly the 2 lanes disappear. You'll find blind summits and hidden dips. You'll find blind corners. You'll find off-camber bends. You'll find poor road surfaces. You'll find the road will have rain running over it and gravel after rain. Surfaces are poor. The edges of the road can drop away very, very suddenly indeed. So you also need, of course, to remember that the weather changes in a blink up there. You can be in bright sun on one side of a hill, top the hill, drive into cloud and rain on the far side. It really does change in an instant. And last but not least, there is wildlife to look out for too, something that often gets forgotten on these roads. Now, when I did my own sort of version of the route. I was riding along a flat, dead straight bit of road. There was a high wall on one side of me, there was a field of oats on the other. It's the kind of bit of road where you can't see anything coming, you can't see any breaks in the wall or this field of oats, and you're likely to think, what can go wrong? Well, actually things went wrong very quickly in a blink of an eye. A red deer jumped straight over the wall from my left hand side and landed directly in front of me in the road. I only just had time to hit the brakes when, fortunately, the deer took one look at me and decided that jumping back over the wall was a really good idea. So I was probably still doing 30 or 40 miles per hour when I crossed the spot where the deer had appeared and disappeared. Now, there's nothing much else I can say about this, is to remind everybody about the frailties of the human body. You know, we're under so much pressure as riders these days to wear, abrasion resistant clothing. We've got the CE standards and whatever the arguments about those. You know, people are now beginning to be really aware of the need for abrasive resistant clothing on the roads. The body armor, we have the debates about the CE1, CE2 levels. There are new innovative forms of body armor which exceed CE2 by some margin, and of course there are airbags as well, which are all over the place recently. You know, they're being hotly promoted by many clothing manufacturers, but the fact is that the amount of impact that all this kit that we can wear is very limited. We really still, however well armored we are, we're not actually much better protected than a pedestrian wearing a t-shirt and shorts. Even if both of the riders involved in this collision were travelling at a very modest 30 miles an hour, it appears they probably collided head on. That would be my guess. I'm not saying that's exactly what happened, but if they did collide head on, even if they were both travelling at a really modest 30 miles an hour, that's still a 60 mile per hour collision. And that's why I'm going to remind you of the 60-second science video from a couple of weeks back on kinetic energy. So I'm just going to play that back to you. Kinetic energy is defined as the energy acquired by an object due to its motion, and when we're riding a motorcycle, both the bike and our own body possesses kinetic energy. So just how much kinetic energy does a motorcycle possess? It's easy enough to calculate using the formula 1/2 times m times v squared. We just plug in some numbers. Let's say we're travelling at 30 miles per hour. First, we convert our speed in miles per hour to meters per second. That's 13.41 meters per second. Now, let's say our motorcycle weighs 230 kilograms, a fairly typical big bike, and the rider tips the scales at 70 kilograms. That's around 11 stone or 153 pounds. That's a nice round figure of 300 kilograms for bike and rider combined. So, to do the calculation, we start by squaring the speed. That gives us 179.88. Then we multiply 179.88 by 300 and halve the total. The result in joules is 26,982. That's our kinetic energy. But 27,000 joules doesn't really tell us much, does it? So let's compare it with a bullet, because we all know that bullets possess lots of energy, don't we? A typical 9mm handgun might fire a bullet weighing around 7.5 grams at around 400 meters per second. Plugging the numbers into the same formula gives us a figure of 600 joules for the bullet's kinetic energy. The kinetic energy of our motorcycle travelling at just 30 miles per hour is more than 40 times greater than the amount of kinetic energy possessed by the handgun bullet, and that should give us a better idea of why crashing a motorcycle does so much damage when it stops suddenly. Next time out, I'll look at the effect of going faster on our kinetic energy. Oh, and just in case you don't trust my figures, there's a link to a handy kinetic energy calculator in the description below. Right, so that was my kinetic energy 60-second science video from a couple of weeks ago. You'll notice that I was riding in France there into a village 50k limit, so that's 28 miles per hour, and there was a motorcycle coming the other way at presumably roughly the same speed. So I was talking about a 30 plus 30 head-on collision. That is pretty much the speed at which we were passing each other. So hopefully that's given you a slightly clearer idea of some of the issues. Right, if you want to watch that video again, I shall also pop the link up for you to refer to. And next week I'll be looking at what Scotland is actually doing to tackle bike crashes. Again, not an absolutely new piece of news, but I'll be referring to that for the first time in next week's Elevenses. So thank you very much indeed for watching today. Don't forget, I will always be very welcome if you can pop over to my coffee page and come up with some support for me. You can be a one-off supporter, you can be a regular subscriber, you can buy products over there, you can commission me to help with riding problems. There's plenty to do over there. So I just want to give a quick shout out to last week's supporters and subscribers. Rob, he downloaded my 10 days to fix your cornering ebook. Mike Fergus, he's booked an online chat. Peter, he built the Science of Being Seen download. NJ, Nigel, Damo, Clive and Anonymous. So thanks to you all very much indeed for your support. It really is appreciated. Don't forget the QR code if you do want to pop over to my coffee page is on screen there. That's the easy way to find it, or it's coffee hyphen ko hyphen fi coffee, in other words .com, and / survival skills. So if you want to get your name up in lights, head over there, support me, and don't forget, if you do support me, you get access to the 1,000 article survival skills Facebook archive. I doubt you can read all those in a month. So anyway, that's it for today. Thank you very much indeed for looking in. Appreciate it. Apologies for the problems with the setup. I can't believe it again. I've got all that ready. I don't know what happened to it. Anyway, hopefully see you for the next show on Wednesday, and if you are out there enjoying your bike today, make sure you stay shiny side up. Sue has just said thank you, and Kevin has said I'm not a pro tourer. For me, 5 hours riding a day plus breaks is plenty. Yeah, I don't tend to disagree with that these days. My days of long hours in the saddle are probably over. And Bo also agrees that the tourist traffic on the NC500 is atrocious. Yeah, it's a shame, isn't it? It was a deserted, beautiful part of the world to ride around in. But hey ho, things change. So that's it for today. Thank you very much indeed for looking in, and hopefully see you for the next show. And if you are out there today, don't forget the weather warnings, watch the forecasts, and make sure you stay shiny side up so you can join me next time out.